There is a kind of silence that only exists in places that were once loud. Not the quiet of emptiness, but the quiet of absence, the echo of conversations that used to bounce off these tiles, the ghost of laughter trapped in the curvature of this ceiling. This was a place designed to be heard. And now, it remembers. Before smartphones, before algorithms decided who we'd see and when, there was a place where you could just show up. You didn't need an invitation. You didn't need to be added to a group chat. You just needed to know the time, the place, and the unspoken rule. If you were early, you saved a seat. The food court wasn't an accident. It was engineered. Urban planners and retail psychologists designed these spaces to do one thing exceptionally well: keep people in the mall together for as long as possible. These tables were long enough for strangers to share space, but close enough that a conversation could start with just a glance. You could be alone, together, a rare thing in any era. Arrival was its own ceremony. You'd walk in, eyes scanning the sea of tables, looking for a familiar jacket, a specific posture. And when you found them, that small lift of the hand, the shift in a chair, it felt like being found. For an hour, maybe two, this tray was your anchor, a temporary home base in a sea of movement. Everything you needed was right here. Fuel, a place to rest your elbows, proof that you belonged, even if just for a little while. This was one of the first places many of us learned to exist without supervision. No parent hovering, no teacher monitoring. Just you, your friends, and the gentle hum of 100 other conversations blending into white noise. If plans changed, you had to go find a phone. And if they weren't there, you waited. Or you left a message with the universe, hoping they'd circle back. Uncertainty wasn't an inconvenience. It was part of the rhythm. A few tokens could buy 20 minutes of escape. The clatter of buttons, the synthesized sound effects, they weren't just noise. They were the soundtrack to a very specific kind of belonging. Before GPS, before real-time updates, you navigated by paper and memory. This map wasn't just directions. It was a promise, a way to say, meet me here, and trust that here would still be there when you arrived. What made the food court work wasn't the food. It was the frictionless way it brought different worlds into the same room. Teenagers, retirees, young families, solo shoppers, all orbiting the same gravitational center. You didn't have to like each other. You just had to share the space. And in that sharing, something quiet and human happened. This was a stage, but without a script. You could try on versions of yourself, the way you sat, the way you laughed, the way you held a straw, and see what felt right, with an audience that wasn't really watching. Waiting wasn't wasted time. It was a space to think, to people watch, to rehearse what you'd say when they finally arrived. The anticipation was part of the connection. In a circle like this, the world outside could fade. The mall's announcements, the distant music, the clatter of trays, they became a white noise backdrop to the only thing that mattered. The conversation happening right here. Leaving was its own kind of promise. See you tomorrow. Or call me. Or just a nod that meant this mattered. And then you'd walk back into the mall, carrying that warmth with you. Memory isn't just visual. It's the smell of grease and cleaning solution, the sound of trays clattering, the feel of plastic under your elbows. These details weren't incidental. They were the architecture of recall. You could smell the food court before you saw it. A specific blend of fried dough, melted cheese, and industrial cleaner. It wasn't always pleasant, but it was unmistakable. And now, decades later, a whiff of something similar can pull you right back. The noise was constant, but never overwhelming. A low hum of humanity. You learned to tune it out or lean into it, depending on what you needed. It was the sound of being part of something larger. Every scratch, every stain, was a record. Someone else had sat here before you. Someone else had laughed, cried, waited, hoped. You were adding your own mark, however small, to the archive. The lighting was never perfect. Fluorescence could be harsh, but in memory, it's always softer, warmer, as if the mind itself applies a filter, turning ordinary moments into something worth keeping. It didn't end with a bang. It ended with a series of small choices, economic shifts, technological changes that quietly made this way of gathering feel optional. Why wait for someone at a table when you could know exactly where they were, what they were doing, and message them instantly? Convenience is a powerful force, but it changes the shape of anticipation. Anchor stores left first, then the smaller shops. The foot traffic dwindled, and with it, the reason to linger. The food court wasn't just a place to eat. It was a symptom of a larger ecosystem. When the body weakened, the heart slowed. Social gravity shifted. The mall was no longer the center. Gatherings moved online, to homes, to curated experiences. The food court, designed for spontaneous collision, struggled in a world that valued intentionality. For a while, one or two stalwarts held on. A familiar logo, a consistent taste. But even loyalty has its limits when the world around you changes shape. There was no ceremony, no final announcement, just a switch flipped, a key turned, a door closed. And just like that, a place that had held millions of moments became just a place. The tables are gone. The lights are off. But the feeling, the specific, human feeling of that space, doesn't just vanish. It migrates. It lingers. If you stand in that silence long enough, you can almost hear it, not with your ears, but with something deeper. The echo of a laugh, the scrape of a chair, the quiet certainty that, for a little while, you were exactly where you were supposed to be. We have replacements, of course. Food halls, co-working cafes, curated experiences. They're beautiful, efficient, but they often ask you to be a customer first and a person second. Maybe what we miss isn't the plastic chairs or the greasy pizza. Maybe it's the friction, the slight inconvenience of showing up, of waiting, of sharing space with strangers. That friction was the price of admission for something real. We take pictures now to prove we were there. But back then, you didn't need proof. You had the feeling. And sometimes, that's enough to carry you forward. We tell our children about these places, not just what they looked like, but how they felt. The freedom, the possibility, the quiet understanding that you could be yourself in public without being on display. The food court was just one answer to a very old question. How do we find each other? The tools change, the aesthetics evolve, but the need, the quiet, persistent need to share space, to be seen without being scrutinized, that remains. We are all archaeologists of our own lives, sifting through the artifacts, a ticket stub, a photo, the memory of a taste, and asking, what did this mean? Who was I in that moment? It's okay to grieve a feeling, to miss not just a place, but a version of yourself that existed there. That grief isn't weakness. It's proof that it mattered. So remember, not just the place, but the possibility it represented. The chance to show up, to connect, to be young and unobserved and free. That possibility isn't gone. It just asks you to look for it in new places. In the end, the food court wasn't about the food. It was about the table and the people who sat at it and the quiet, human truth that sometimes the most important things happen in the spaces between. Thank you for remembering with us.